guys who committed fraud. They conned me.
You're one of the richest men in America.
They conned me. I made an investment in these guys thinking it was on the up and up, and they conned me.
Aspiration is the company that was paying Kawhi Leonard allegedly under the tables. Steve Ballmer and other Ballmer surrogates were funneling money to the company, keep it afloat. Steve Ballmer is being sued by people who are investors in Aspiration.
Everyone's talking about Clippers drama, but they're missing the real story. If the NBA can't police a clean salary cap when the numbers get this loud, $28 million loud, then the cap is basically a suggestion for the richest owners. And that's the allegation here, that Kawhi Leonard had an off-books pipeline through a now bankrupt green company called Aspiration, tied to the Clippers ecosystem. If that's true, you're not talking about a fine and vibes. You're talking picks, contracts, suspensions, stuff that changes legacies. And there's one clause in the paperwork that makes it all smell wrong. So let's rewind, because this didn't start with a shams tweet. It started with paperwork. Aspiration sold itself as this climate-forward green bank and carbon credit broker. Big celebrity energy, big marketing. And per the reporting we're working off, the company raised huge money, carried a massive valuation pitch, then eventually crashed into bankruptcy, while federal agencies were also investigating Aspiration's broader conduct. Now, here's the part that pulls the NBA into it. In that bankruptcy filing, there's a creditor list. And on that list, as reported in Pablo Torre's investigation, is an entity called KL2 Aspire LLC, owed around $7 million. KL2, Kawhi's number. And the LLC's public paperwork lists Kawhi Leonard as manager or member, again as reported. That's not internet conspiracy. That's a document trail that exists because bankruptcy forces companies to put their debts on paper. And once you see KL2 Aspire LLC, the next question is obvious. What did Aspiration pay Kawhi for? According to Torre's reporting, the answer is a signed endorsement agreement, $28 million in cash, structured as $7 million per year over 4 years. The contract is reportedly effective April 1st, 2022, with signatures shown in the reporting. And one detail that keeps popping up in this story, because it popped up in the contract itself, is that the notices for Kawhi's LLC are listed care of Dennis Robertson, Uncle Dennis, the same name that's been in NBA whispers since 2019. Now, an endorsement deal by itself isn't illegal. Players get endorsements all the time. The issue is the structure, because per the analysis in the reporting, the deal reads less like marketing services and more like a no-lose payment vehicle. The deliverables? They're written in a way that's basically optional, if requested. And then there's a carve-out that lets KL2 decline actions if Kawhi believes they're not consistent with his beliefs. Not capital B defined beliefs, just beliefs. So if the company asks for something and he doesn't want to do it, the contract language gives him an exit ramp. That's the no-show allegation in a nutshell. Money moving, but performance being functionally unenforceable. And the reporting includes former Aspiration employees describing this deal as the biggest sponsorship arrangement Aspiration ever made, and saying they never saw evidence of Kawhi actually marketing the company. That's their claim, and it's a major piece of why the NBA would even care. But wait, it gets worse, because the strangest part isn't even the beliefs clause. The strangest part, as discussed in that investigation, is a termination for cause provision tied specifically to Kawhi being on the Clippers. In normal endorsement logic, a brand pays you because you're you. The shoe company doesn't cancel you because you got traded. But here, the contract reportedly treats no longer being a Clipper as a cause for termination. Think about that for a second. If the product is Kawhi Leonard NBA star, why does the deal care which jersey he's wearing? That's the detail that turns this from weird sponsorship into this might be a retention mechanism. And Kawhi's public response matters here too. When asked about the allegations, he basically waved off headlines and conspiracies, said the NBA will do its job, and said nobody did wrongdoing. He also said Aspiration went bankrupt, called it fraud, and claimed the company owed him more than $7 million, while not getting deep into the specifics. So yeah, we have denials, we have allegations, and we have paper. And now the question becomes, why does the league treat this kind of thing like the cardinal sin? Here's the observation everybody lands on. It's just an endorsement deal. Cool, except the NBA doesn't treat extra benefits like a fun side hustle. The CBA treats it like a direct attack on the entire ecosystem, because the salary cap is the one thing stopping the richest owners from turning free agency into an auction with hidden bidders. Think about that for a second. If you can pay a star through a sponsor, an investor, a partner company, a marketing agreement, whatever label you want to slap on it, then the cap stops being a cap. It becomes a receipt you hand to accountants while the real negotiation happens somewhere else. And that's why this would terrify the league office. Not because the Clippers are the Clippers, because if this is real, it's scalable. Every major market has corporate partners. Every rich owner has investment vehicles. Every team has sponsorship inventory. You're basically creating a black market for roster building. Now, the penalties matter here because people hear investigation and think it's a slap on the wrist. But the reporting around this story keeps coming back to how serious cap circumvention is under league rules. Fines, forfeited draft picks, potential contract voiding, and suspensions for team personnel involved. Those aren't bad PR punishments. Those are we need to scare everybody else straight punishments. And we've already seen the NBA set the tone on smaller stuff.
The modern reference is the Bulls' Lonzo Ball tampering case. Chicago got hit with a second-round pick penalty because the league decided they started talking too early. That's not money moving. That's process. That's soft power. But the league still wanted to make an example because tampering undermines the system of how players are supposed to choose teams. So if the NBA is willing to drop a pick over the timing of conversations, what do you think the league has to do if the allegation is a hidden $28 million retention package tied to staying on a specific roster? That's a completely different severity ladder. Tampering is the flirtation. Circumvention is the payment. And historically, the league has treated circumvention like a don't even try it category, because owners, especially small market owners, will revolt if they think the richest guy can just buy a parallel payroll. Now add the context that keeps getting mentioned in the reporting. There were already suspicions around Kawhi's recruitment years ago. The league looked into it, and the key line was basically, "We didn't find evidence, but we'll reopen if new evidence surfaces." So if the aspiration paperwork is real and relevant, this isn't some random fire drill. This is the exact scenario the league warned about. And the timing makes it worse. Reporting around 2026 has this sitting in a pressure cooker. The investigation is described as ongoing, with the NBA outsourcing work to outside counsel, and the Clippers hosting All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles at Intuit Dome. If you're Adam Silver, you don't want your biggest mid-season spotlight sitting under an unresolved, did a team buy a star off book cloud? So that's the league's fear. Not headlines, not memes. The fear is precedent. Because if they don't enforce the cap here, where the allegation includes contracts, LLCs, bankruptcy filings, and a clause that allegedly ties the deal to being a Clipper, then good luck telling the next owner no. Now here's the part that kills me. Everyone wants to argue the contract language, but the NBA investigation is really about one thing: power. Because the accused ecosystem here doesn't orbit some random owner. It orbits Steve Ballmer, one of the richest owners in sports, and a guy who, by most accounts, has built real credibility with other owners since buying the Clippers. And that matters, because recent reporting is basically waving a giant caution flag. You don't pick a legal fight with Ballmer unless you've got airtight evidence. ESPN quoted a rival team president saying exactly that. Be careful getting into a legal fight with someone like Ballmer. You have to have the evidence. Translation: the NBA can't show up with vibes and hope. If they swing and miss, they look weak forever. And that's why the outside counsel detail is important. ESPN reported the NBA outsourced the investigation to Wachtel, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz. That's not "we're monitoring." That's "we're building a case file." Billable hours are mounting, and the league knows the whole sport is going to read the result as a signal about whether the cap is actually enforceable. Meanwhile, the Clippers' position has been blunt. The statement that keeps getting repeated is provably false, and that the team ended its relationship with Aspiration years ago, around the 2022-23 season, when Aspiration defaulted. They also said neither Ballmer nor the Clippers were aware of improper activity until after the government investigation started. That's their line, and if you're trying to build reasonable doubt, it's not a bad one, because Aspiration's broader legal cloud cuts both ways. On the one hand, federal investigations and bankruptcy filings are exactly why documents exist and why former employees talk.
On the other hand, it also creates noise. If aspiration was a mess, you can argue weird contracts happened for weird reasons, not because an NBA team orchestrated them. So what happens next? I think there are 3 realistic buckets. Bucket 1. The NBA closes this quietly. No public fireworks, no major punishment, and you'll hear insufficient evidence to substantiate in some form. That's the outcome if the league can't prove the flow of funds connects the Clippers to the payments in a way that meets their standard. Bucket 2. Contained discipline. A fine and a pick penalty. The way the league handled Bulls' Lonzo tampering just scaled up. Not because tampering equals circumvention. It doesn't. But because the NBA loves penalties that look serious without detonating a franchise. Bucket 3. The hammer. Suspensions. Multiple picks. A punishment designed to terrify every owner with a sponsor portfolio. That only happens if the league believes the evidence is overwhelming and repeatable. And here's the on-court layer that makes this extra toxic for Clippers fans. They picked the wrong year to be unstable. ESPN noted OKC has their unprotected first-round pick. So if this season already goes sideways, you don't even get the usual, at least we'll draft top 5 consolation prize. Any extra pick forfeiture would hit like a double tax. If off-cap benefits can hide inside endorsements tied to staying on one team, the salary cap becomes optional for the richest people in the league. Drop your thoughts in the comments because I'm reading all of them. Does this end like Bulls' Lonzo tampering? Real punishment but contained? Or does the NBA have to swing harder here? And what's the cleanest, innocent explanation for that must be a Clipper clause?